The unsettling sensation of being watched is a primal fear, deeply ingrained within us. But imagine that gaze emanating not from a living being, but from a painting, a mere canvas and pigment, yet possessing an unnerving, seemingly sentient presence. This isn't a fleeting trick of light or a simple optical illusion. It's a phenomenon whispered in hushed tones through the hallowed halls of art, a chilling testament to certain masterpieces that appear to transcend their static forms and genuinely observe their surroundings and you. It challenges our very understanding of what art can truly be. Among such enigmatic artworks, one painting stands uniquely infamous, shrouded in an aura of dread and relentless fascination. The Silent Observer. Created in the late 19th century by an artist whose identity remains fiercely debated, this striking portrait of a stern, almost accusatory figure is renowned not just for its dark artistic merit, but for a far more terrifying attribute. Legend dictates that no matter your position, no matter the angle, the subject's eyes within the frame will follow your every movement, tracking your presence with an unnerving, perpetual stare that countless individuals have found profoundly disturbing. This isn't merely an optical illusion, a clever trick of perspective. The Silent Observer transcends simple artistry, its power rooted in the psychological invasion it seems to perpetrate. It evokes an unsettling sensation of being truly watched, judged, and perhaps even known by a painted entity. Visitors report a chilling vulnerability, an inexplicable unease that lingers long after they've left its presence. It challenges our rational minds, poking at deep anxieties about surveillance and the unknown, forcing us to confront the possibility that some art possesses a consciousness far beyond our current comprehension. For centuries, the Silent Observer has been dismissed by skeptics as a product of overactive imaginations, a testament to our tendency to project fear onto the unknown. Yet, the sheer volume of consistent accounts, spanning generations and continents, demands closer scrutiny. This series will venture beyond easy dismissals, diving headfirst into the unsettling reality of this painting. We will meticulously investigate its origins, the shadowy life of its alleged creator, and the documented incidents and personal testimonies that paint a far more complex and terrifying picture than mere folklore. We seek the truth, however unsettling. Join us as we embark on this perilous journey into the heart of a mystery that blurs the lines between art and the supernatural. We will scrutinize every brushstroke, every historical record, every chilling account linked to the Silent Observer. From its initial unveiling to its current guarded existence, we'll peel back the layers of myth and reveal the secrets it has silently observed for generations. Prepare to question everything you thought you knew about art, perception, and the very nature of what can truly see you. Some doors once opened can never be fully closed. The unsettling gaze of the Silent Observer wasn't born from mere artistic whim. It emerged from the tormented soul of Elias Thorne, a name now whispered with a mixture of awe and dread among art historians. Thorne, an artist of profound, unsettling talent, was deeply reclusive, shunning vibrant Parisian salons for the solitude of his dimly lit studio. His early works, though masterful, were criticized for their stark, almost invasive realism, as if he sought to strip away societal veneers. He wasn't merely painting portraits. He was attempting to capture the very echo of a soul, an ambition that would ultimately consume him. This fixation, initially a noble pursuit of truth, gradually twisted into an obsession. Thorne believed conventional methods insufficient to grasp the true essence of human spirit, leading him down increasingly dark, dubious paths. Rumors circulated among the few who visited his isolated atelier. Whispers of unsettling sittings, of models emerging pale and disturbed. He reportedly used unconventional pigments and demanded ritualistic intensity from subjects, pushing them to emotional breaking points to unlock their inner specter. His art was no longer just observation, it was extraction. It was during this period of escalating eccentricity that Thorne's work took a truly sinister turn. Many speculate his relentless pursuit of The unseen opened a doorway to forces beyond human comprehension. Fragmented accounts suggest Thorne delved into forbidden texts, seeking ancient rituals and arcane knowledge promising to imbue his creations with genuine life, or perhaps a malevolent presence. Some whisper of a pact, a desperate bargain struck in his studio, trading a piece of his humanity to imbue his magnum opus with a conscious, dark essence. This was not inspiration, it was a desperate plea to the void. The creation of the silent observer became a dark crucible, a period of intense, feverish activity stretching for months, isolating Thorne completely. He worked under a pall of secrecy, the studio sealed against light and intrusion, filled only with the scent of oils, strange herbs, and palpable dread. Each brushstroke was laden not just with paint, but with a fragment of Thorne's deteriorating sanity, a piece of the dark energy he had invoked. The figure's eyes were the focus of his most intense efforts, meticulously crafted to mirror the chilling gaze of something ancient and watchful, reflecting the pact he had made. As the final touches were applied, Thorne was a shadow of his former self, gaunt, haunted, his eyes mirroring the unsettling intensity transferred to the canvas. His health deteriorated rapidly, as if the painting, once complete, began to feed on its creator, siphoning his life force. He spoke less, ate less, spending his final days simply staring at his creation, a mixture of profound terror and perverse satisfaction etched upon his face. Elias Thorne vanished shortly after The Silent Observer was finished, leaving not just a masterpiece, but a chilling testament to unchecked ambition, a painting forever carrying its creator's dark descent. The completion of The Silent Observer did not bring Elias Thorne the solace or triumph one might expect from a magnum opus. Instead, it marked the beginning of his profound and terrifying unraveling. The eccentric genius, who once commanded the canvas with unparalleled vision, slowly receded, replaced by a gaunt, haunted figure whose eyes now mirrored the very emptiness he had sought to capture. His studio, once a vibrant crucible of creation, transformed into a mausoleum of his sanity, the air thick with an oppressive stillness that clung to every brushstroke and shadow. The painting, now complete, seemed to radiate a silent, watchful presence, an entity that had merely been dormant, waiting for its full form to awaken. Whispers of Thorne's increasingly erratic behavior began to circulate among the few who still dared to visit his secluded atelier. They spoke of inexplicable chills that permeated the rooms, even on warm days, and the unsettling sensation of being watched from unseen corners. Paints would dry out overnight despite being sealed. Brushes would be found meticulously arranged in bizarre patterns, and sometimes a faint metallic scent, like old blood, would linger in the air. Thorne himself became a shadow, his once meticulous attire now disheveled, his hands trembling as he endlessly paced around his finished masterpiece, a prisoner to the very art he had created. But the most disturbing revelation came from Thorne's own fractured confessions. He claimed the painting spoke to him, not in words, but in a cacophony of soft, insistent murmurs that seemed to emanate directly from the canvas itself. These were not the whispers of artistic inspiration, but insidious, seductive suggestions that preyed on his deepest fears and desires, twisting his perception of reality. He'd spend hours, pressed close to the painting, his ear almost touching the surface, trying to decipher the unholy symphony, his paranoia growing with each passing moment, convinced that the world outside was conspiring against him, seeking to steal his creation, or perhaps to free him from its grasp. His physical and mental decline accelerated at an alarming pace. Thorne stopped eating, barely, sleeping, his waking hours consumed by a frantic, desperate attempt to understand or perhaps even silence the malevolent force he believed resided within the silent observer. He would often be found in the dead of night, adding minuscule, almost imperceptible strokes to the painting, as if trying to appease it, or perhaps to complete some unseen demand. At other times he would stand before it, screaming, pleading with the painted eyes to leave him be, to release him from its suffocating embrace, a grotesque dance between creator and creation, where the roles had irrevocably reversed. The end of Elias Thorne's story remains shrouded in the same impenetrable mystery that cloaks his masterpiece. One morning, his studio was found empty, the door ajar, a faint, lingering scent of ozone in the air. Thorne was gone, vanished without a trace, leaving behind only his tools, his madness, and the silent observer, its eyes seeming to gleam with a new, dark satisfaction. Some say he was consumed by the painting, dragged into its depths as a final act of vengeance. Others whisper of possession, his body becoming a mere vessel for the entity he had unwittingly brought to life. His tragic fate, an indelible part of the legend, forever bound to the canvas, a chilling testament to the dangers of peering too deeply into the abyss. Following Thorne's chilling disappearance, the painting, now a vessel of unspeakable energies, did not vanish with its creator. Instead, it surfaced years later in the most improbable of places. A dusty, unadvertised auction held in the dimly lit backroom of a forgotten London antique shop. It was here that the affluent Sterling family, known for their eclectic tastes and patronage of the arts, stumbled upon the silent watcher. Mr. Alistair Sterling, a man of quiet scholarly pursuits, was immediately captivated by its profound depth and unsettling realism, seeing not a harbinger of doom, but a misunderstood masterpiece waiting to be appreciated. His wife Eleanor, a woman of sharp wit and even sharper intuition, felt an immediate prickle of unease, a cold sensation that traced its way up her spine the moment her eyes met the canvas. Despite her protests, Alistair's intellectual curiosity, coupled with the painting's undeniable aesthetic power, ultimately swayed her. They acquired it for a sum far below its perceived artistic value, oblivious to the true cost they were about to incur. Upon returning to their stately home, the painting was given pride of place in the grand parlor, its dark eyes now surveying their domestic tranquility. Initially, the Sterlings reveled in their new acquisition. Guests admired its striking beauty, sparking conversations about its mysterious origins. Yet, within weeks, a subtle, almost imperceptible shift began to permeate the household. A peculiar chill seemed to emanate from the parlor, even on the warmest days. Objects would inexplicably move, or shadows would lengthen and distort in the periphery of their vision, only to vanish upon direct inspection. Each family member, though silently, felt a growing sense of being watched, an omnipresent gaze that left them feeling exposed and vulnerable, even in their own sanctuary. The initial fascination slowly curdled into a pervasive discomfort. Eleanor found herself avoiding the parlor, claiming a sudden aversion to its heavy atmosphere. Alistair, once so enthralled, grew increasingly withdrawn, spending hours staring at the painting, his usual intellectual curiosity replaced by a vacant, almost obsessive contemplation. Their two children, young and impressionable, began to experience vivid, disturbing nightmares, their once joyful laughter replaced by hushed whispers and a palpable fear of the dark corners of their home. Minor disagreements escalated into heated arguments, fueled by an inexplicable irritability and a growing sense of paranoia that fractured their once harmonious family dynamic. The painting, the silent watcher, had begun its insidious work. It wasn't merely an object of art. It was a living entity, feeding on the emotional fabric of the Sterling household. The seeds of discord, suspicion, and a creeping madness were meticulously planted, not through overt acts of terror but through a slow psychological erosion. The family's emotional stability, once a solid foundation, now felt like crumbling earth beneath their feet, preparing for the devastating collapse that the painting's full curse would inevitably bring. The Sterlings were merely the first to feel its suffocating embrace, but it was not merely the painting's stark beauty or its enigmatic subject that began to unravel the Sterling family's composure. It was something far more insidious, a pervasive sensation. The undeniable, chilling certainty that the eyes of the silent observer, followed every single movement of anyone within its gaze. What began as a fleeting discomfort quickly solidified into terrifying conviction. A cold, unblinking stare seemed to pierce through thoughts, directly into their souls, leaving no corner of their existence untouched by its relentless scrutiny, eroding the very fabric of their once peaceful home. Each Sterling household member, initially dismissing it as an optical illusion, soon confessed similar disturbing encounters. Mrs. Sterling, a woman of unwavering practicalities, awoke convinced she felt an unseen gaze upon her as she walked the dimly lit hallway, finding the painting's eyes fixed on her from the drawing room. Young Thomas, the family's usually boisterous son, grew unnaturally quiet, whispering of a cold presence, swearing the painted eyes would narrow imperceptibly as he hurried by, a silent, predatory judgment. Visitors, too, became unwitting participants in this chilling phenomenon, their initial admiration quickly replaced by uncomfortable unease. Guests would instinctively shift positions, turn their backs, or even leave the room, unable to shake the feeling of being perpetually watched, their every gesture scrutinized by an entity trapped within the canvas. Some described it as a physical pressure, a tightening in the chest, while others spoke of an overwhelming urge to flee, an instinctual dread triggered by the relentless gaze that seemed to penetrate their thoughts, dissecting intentions with icy precision. The psychological toll this constant surveillance exacted was profound and devastating. The Sterlings found their peace of mind eroding daily, replaced by pervasive anxiety. Conversations became strained, punctuated by furtive glances towards the drawing room, acknowledging the ever-present observer. Sleep offered no true respite. Vivid, terrifying nightmares became nightly occurrences, often featuring shadowy figures with piercing eyes, or the sensation of being trapped under an inescapable, malevolent gaze. The line between reality and hallucination blurred, their sanity slowly but surely chipping away. This shared terror fostered a unique, destructive, collective paranoia within the Sterling home. Each family member, seeing the same fear reflected, became convinced they were victims of an inexplicable, supernatural phenomenon. They spoke in hushed tones, voices laced with desperate urgency, trying to articulate the inarticulable, finding solace in shared dread, yet only amplifying the terror. The house, once a sanctuary, transformed into a cage, its inhabitants prisoners of an unseen, unblinking warden. Forever haunted by the silent, judging gaze of the silent observer, their sanity hung by a thread, constantly questioned, irrevocably shattered. The subtle unease that had first crept into the Sterling household, born from the unsettling gaze of the silent observer, soon intensified into something far more sinister. The feeling of being watched, once a mere prickle on the skin, evolved into an omnipresent dread. It began with whispers, faint and indistinct, like a breeze rustling through forgotten memories. At first, Eleanor dismissed them as the house settling, or perhaps her imagination, a trick of the mind in the quiet hours. But then Robert heard them too, a low, guttural murmur emanating from empty rooms, a language no human understood yet undeniably present. Objects began to defy gravity and logic. A porcelain figurine, a cherished family heirloom, would be found shattered on the floor, though no one had touched it. Books slid from shelves in the dead of night, landing with startling thuds that echoed through the silent corridors. Keys vanished from their hooks only to reappear minutes later in the most improbable places, a cruel game played by an unseen hand. The very air grew heavy, thick with an unseen presence, pressing down on their chests, making each breath a conscious effort. Then came the cold. Not the chill of an open window, but sudden localized drops in temperature that would sweep through a room, leaving a pocket of icy despair in their wake. These frigid zones often coalesced around the painting, as if the silent observer itself exhaled a frosty breath into their living space. Shadows, once predictable companions of light, took on a life of their own. They stretched and contorted on walls, dancing in peripheral vision, elongating into grotesque figures that vanished the moment a direct gaze was cast upon them. These weren't mere tricks of light. They were fluid, malevolent forms, mocking their sanity. Sleep became a luxury the Sterlings could no longer afford. Nightmares plagued them, vivid and terrifying, filled with faceless entities in the suffocating silence of an endless void. They would wake in a cold sweat, convinced they heard footsteps on the stairs or the faint creak of a floorboard just outside their bedroom door. The house, once a sanctuary, had become a prison of their own making, each room a stage for the escalating torment. The children, too, began to show signs of distress, speaking of an invisible friend who wasn't friendly, who whispered secrets only they could hear. The once vibrant home was now a mausoleum of fear, its corridors echoing not with laughter, but with the chilling proof of an intensifying haunting. Every unexplained sound, every displaced object, every icy breath of air was a stark reminder of the silent observer's growing power. The Sterling family was trapped, their lives consumed by a waking nightmare, their sanity slowly eroding under the relentless assault of the paranormal. There was no escape. The echoes in the corridors were now the relentless soundtrack of their doom, a testament to the painting's malevolent grip. The terror that had gripped the Sterling household wasn't just psychological, it had become an inescapable physical presence, a suffocating shroud that clung to every corner of their once vibrant home. With their sanity fraying and their lives consumed by the relentless malevolence emanating from the canvas, the family made a desperate decision. The silent observer had to be destroyed. This was no longer about understanding or enduring. It was about survival, a frantic last stand against an enemy they couldn't comprehend, but knew they had to eradicate. They believed eliminating the source would reclaim their lives from the encroaching darkness, a hope born of sheer desperation. Their first attempts were born of raw, primal rage. Arthur, usually a man of measured temperament, took an axe to the canvas, aiming to cleave the unsettling face from existence. Yet with each furious swing, the blade seemed to glance off an invisible shield, leaving not a scratch or dent on the aged oil. The frame remained pristine, the paint undisturbed, mocking his futile efforts. Eleanor tried dousing it with various solvents, hoping to dissolve the cursed image, but the liquid simply beaded and rolled away, leaving the surface untouched, as if repelled. The painting absorbed their aggression, growing stronger, more defiant with every failed strike, deepening their dread. When brute force proved useless, they turned to the elements, their desperation escalating. They attempted to burn it, setting a contained fire in the fireplace with the painting carefully placed within. To their horror, the flames, which had eagerly consumed the kindling, flickered and died the moment they touched the canvas, leaving only a lingering scent of ozone, not char. Disheartened, Arthur then drove miles into the countryside, tossing the silent observer into a deep abandoned well, convinced it would be lost forever. Yet, a mere 2 days later, they found it propped against their front door, its eyes seemingly brighter, more intense, as if enjoying the cruel joke of its reappearance. Each failed attempt chipped away at their resolve, replacing it with bone-chilling dread. It was no longer a mere object or conduit for a malevolent spirit. It was an entity, a living, breathing curse that defied all physical laws. The Sterlings began to understand with sickening clarity that the silent observer wasn't just in their home. It was part of their lives, an inseparable shadow. The realization they were tethered to something immortal, something that could not be destroyed or escaped, began to systematically dismantle their minds. Hope, once a flickering ember, was now extinguished, leaving behind a cold, desolate void of powerlessness. The final straw was not a dramatic confrontation, but a quiet, crushing surrender. Exhausted, impoverished by futile attempts to find solutions, and utterly broken in spirit, the Sterlings could no longer endure the relentless torment. They abandoned their ancestral home, leaving the silent observer behind, not as an act of defiance, but as a desperate plea for escape. They walked away from their history, memories, and sanity, understanding that the painting had won. It remained there, in the silent house, waiting, its gaze fixed on an empty space, a chilling testament to the family it had irrevocably ruined, now free to observe the slow decay of the home it had claimed. Alistair Finch was not merely a collector, he was an iconoclast, a man whose reputation was built on acquiring pieces shrouded in myth and systematically stripping away their supernatural veneer. His galleries were temples not of belief, but of rational explanation, where every alleged haunting or curse was meticulously catalogued, analyzed, and ultimately dismissed. When whispers of The Silent Observer reached him, a painting infamous for driving its owners to despair and ruin, now abandoned and adrift, Finch saw not a cursed artifact, but a grand challenge. He acquired it with an almost arrogant confidence, certain that he possessed the intellect and scientific rigor to finally expose the painting as nothing more than a historical curiosity, a canvas of psychological projection rather than true malevolence. This was his next great debunking, a testament to the supremacy of reason. His initial approach was textbook scientific inquiry. The painting was installed in a controlled environment within his private study, equipped with an array of sensors, temperature gauges, motion detectors, sound recorders, and high-definition cameras set to capture every conceivable anomaly. Finch himself maintained a rigorous log, documenting his observations, mood, and any subjective experiences, determined to find logical correlations or, more likely, self-induced hallucinations. He spent hours, days, weeks, staring into those unsettling eyes, daring them to reveal their supposed power. Every strange creak of the old house, every shift in shadow, was meticulously recorded and cross-referenced, invariably attributed to structural aging, ambient light, or the subtle tricks of the human mind. He was a fortress of logic, impenetrable to suggestion. Yet a subtle shift began to occur. Finch, a man of precise habits, found himself increasingly distracted. His meticulously organized research notes would occasionally be found slightly out of order, or a favored pen would vanish, only to reappear in an unexpected drawer. He dismissed these as minor oversights, products of his own fatigue. But then came the dreams. Vivid, unsettling narratives that blurred the lines between his waking research and nocturnal terror, leaving him drained. The room, once a sterile laboratory, began to feel less like a controlled environment and more like a stage where he was the unwitting performer, watched by an audience he couldn't see but whose presence he increasingly felt. The rationalizations grew thinner. He started to notice patterns in the disappearances of objects, a peculiar logic to their reappearance that defied forgetfulness. The temperature sensors would occasionally spike or plummet in specific zones around the painting, moments before he would feel an inexplicable chill, despite the house's climate control. The cameras, his objective witnesses, would sometimes glitch, showing brief unexplainable distortions or sudden silent blanks during periods when he remembered being present. His mind, once a bastion of skepticism, found itself grappling with data that refused to fit into his established scientific framework. The painting wasn't just observing, it was actively interfering, dismantling his world, piece by piece. Alistair Finch, the great debunker, found his reality crumbling around him. The initial fascination had curdled into a gnawing dread, then terrifying obsession. Sleep became a luxury he could no longer afford, haunted by the feeling of those painted eyes penetrating his thoughts, twisting his perceptions. His once sharp intellect, now frayed, could no longer find a scientific explanation for the undeniable malevolence. The painting had not only resisted his attempts to demystify it, it had turned his own methodology against him, using his meticulous observations to prove its existence. His confidence shattered, his sanity teetering on the brink, Finch became yet another victim, a testament to the silent observer's insidious power, proving that even the most unyielding reason was no match for its ancient influence. Alistair Finch, The unwavering skeptic succumbed. His descent into madness and the abandonment of his research left a void filled with questions, but also a disturbing certainty. The painting was not a hoax. It was not a trick of light or an illusion of the mind. It possessed a power, an agency that defied logic and science. But what, after all, was the silent watcher? The legends whispered, the victims cried out, and the few researchers brave enough to delve into its history attempted to formulate theories to decipher the nature of this dark entity that manifested through the canvas. Each theory was more chilling than the last, each one trying to name the unspeakable terror. One of the oldest and most persistent hypotheses suggests that the painting harbors an imprisoned spirit. Could the canvas be a cell for a malevolent entity, perhaps the soul of a tormented artist or a forgotten victim, condemned to observe the world through its empty eyes? This theory gains strength from the painting's apparent awareness, its ability to react to events and influence the environment around it. Another paranormal variation speaks of an ancient curse embedded in the paints or the very wood of the frame, a dark enchantment that manifests through the work, dooming all who dare to possess it. Another paranormal line of thought points to the idea of a psychically charged object. Throughout its existence, the silent watcher has witnessed and absorbed centuries of fear, despair, and tragedy. Every scream, every nightmare, every shattered life would have infused the painting with a dense and malevolent psychic energy. It would not be a conscious being in itself, but a receptacle, a magnet for darkness, radiating this accumulated energy and affecting the minds and spirits of those who approach, distorting reality and inducing terror and paranoia. And there is the most intriguing, and perhaps the most terrifying theory, the painting as a tulpa. In Tibetan mysticism, a tulpa is an entity or object created purely through collective thought and concentrated intention. If the legend of the painting has spread, if millions of people have believed in its power, its malevolence, its ability to watch and terrorize, have they unwittingly given life to that belief? Has the collective faith and fear transformed a simple canvas into a living manifestation of terror, fed by the very attention it receives? On the other hand, skeptics, before their own downfall, always pointed to psychological explanations. The power of suggestion is immense. The human mind, once convinced of a threat, can project fears and anxieties onto inanimate objects. Pareidolia, the tendency to see familiar patterns in random objects, could turn the shadows in the painting into watchful eyes. Stress and sleep deprivation could lead to hallucinations. Yet even the most rational explanations fail to account for the consistency of the phenomena, the repetition of patterns of misfortune across multiple owners, and the undeniable visceral feeling of dread that the painting continues to inspire, defying reason and reminding us that not everything that terrifies us can be simply explained away. Alistair Finch, the renowned skeptic, became just another name added to the tragic ledger of the silent watcher. His meticulously planned scientific debunking of the painting's supposed powers crumbled under the weight of its inexplicable influence, leaving behind a broken man, his sanity fractured beyond repair. After his dramatic fall, the painting, as it always does, vanished from public view, only to resurface months later in the clandestine world of private auctions, its price undoubtedly inflated by the very terror it instilled. It never truly settles, this canvas, always seeking new eyes to ensnare, new minds to slowly unravel. Despite countless attempts to rationalize it, debunk it, or even destroy it, the legend of the silent watcher refuses to die. It thrives in the shadows, passed along through whispered conversations in dimly lit galleries, murmured warnings in academic circles, and now in viral threads across the digital sphere. Each new victim, each tragic tale, rather than diminishing its mystique, only serves to amplify its terrifying reputation, weaving yet another thread into the intricate tapestry of its dark mythology. It is a testament to something profoundly unsettling, something that defies the very framework of our understanding, a power that grows stronger with each passing generation. And so, the painting continues its eternal vigil, an artifact of pure dread traversing the globe, a silent predator in plain sight. From the dusty vaults of obscure European estates to the minimalist penthouses of New York's elite, it passes from hand to hand, from the curious to the obsessed, each new owner convinced they can master its influence, only to find themselves slowly consumed by its unrelenting gaze. It is a dark dance, a macabre relay race where the torch is a canvas and the prize is a descent into madness. The painting does not merely exist, it actively chooses, beckoning its next watcher with an irresistible and fatal allure. For centuries, humanity has grappled with its true nature. Is it a spirit trapped within the very fibers of the canvas, a spectral entity bound by ancient rites? Could it be a curse, an insidious spell woven into the pigments by some unknown and malevolent force? Or perhaps, as some theories suggest, a powerful tulpa, a sentient manifestation born from the collective fear and obsession of all who have ever beheld it? No scientific analysis, no spiritual purification, no psychological evaluation has ever provided a satisfying answer, leaving us only with questions, each more unsettling than the last. The how, why, remains as terribly elusive as the what. The mystery endures, a perpetual shadow cast over the world of art and beyond. The silent watcher is out there, somewhere, its unsettling gaze fixed on someone right now, perhaps a new and unsuspecting soul drawn in by its enigmatic fascination. Its vigil is endless, its power seemingly boundless, an eternal testament to the dark corners of human experience and the unknown forces that lurk just beyond our perception. As you reflect on these stories, on the countless lives it has touched and twisted, one chilling thought lingers. If this painting can exist, if such an entity can truly exert its will, then who is its next watcher? And could that perpetual, silent gaze, even now, be fixed upon you?